I want to bring in my guests. We're joined with the man himself, Dr. Wilmer Leon. I like to call him Doctor because, damn it, he earned it. Dr. Wilmer Leon, he's radio host, political scientist, nationally syndicated columnist, and host of Connecting the Dots. How you doing, my man? You doing okay today?
Yes, I am, and thank you for that introduction. I'm also a guy that needs a haircut, which is why I have the hat on.
You're perfectly fine. You see, I got rid of my homeless beard. Once I finally left country, I was like, all right, I can't look homeless.
Right.
You heard part of that monologue,
Mm-hmm.
and I could have kept going with that monologue because there are other parts to this that are fascinatingly important.
Mm-hmm.
There's a question that often looms about whether Trump is complicit or whether Donald Trump is just incompetent. And I think you made the point before, both of those things are probably true together. It's not one or the other, it's both. Larry Johnson was given an interview, and Larry Johnson came out and said something that is fascinating to me, because this gets to the stupid part. Yeah, complicit. I mean, obviously, he seems to be okay with the whole regime change thing, quote unquote. But, you know, when Trump says, I don't like losers, he may be serious. He doesn't like losers, even though he lost in Yemen, even though he's getting beat in Ukraine. He thinks that this may be one of his wins. This is what Larry Johnson said, that effectively Trump is being lied to, and he's too stupid to realize it.
We don't have good intelligence, and we certainly don't have ground penetrating radar that tells us how many missiles they've got stacked up in these tunnels and buried in these mountains. But I guarantee you that in addition to storing such missiles, they're also doing production of such missiles in these secure locations. So we don't have even a clue exactly how many they have. However, the Trump is being advised, I've learned within the last hour before coming on air with you, that Iran is it's run out of missiles.
Now, Dr. Leon, you and I have worked at the same radio station, and we remember those headlines. Russia's running out of missiles. Putin is about to commit suicide. Putin has fifth stage cancer. Putin has, add whatever else into it. He's isolated.
Don't forget the diaper. Don't forget he was walking around. He was part of Funkadelic. He was walking around in a diaper looking for the mothership.
That's my point, right? Like, these headlines come out all the time. Mm-hmm. And, if you work on a radio station like we did, you realize, okay, these people are they're out of their minds. They're just making this stuff up for public consumption. Do you think that he is that stupid where they tell him stuff and he just runs with it? Even though from his point of view, or from the point of view of MAGA, that the first time around that Donald Trump was effectively being misled by the people around him. Well, it sounds like that may be true once again, which, just to be clear though, it's his responsibility. So I'm not taking responsibility away from him. Mm-hmm. Whether he thought he can win or lose is irrelevant to the point. He's provoking a war and is getting involved in a war. I'm just trying to say though that he may be given data that he thinks is true. He thinks this is going to be a slam dunk, and it's not. Give me your thoughts.
There are a couple of things here. One is, I believe in the first administration, he had a lot of sycophants, but then there were also some rational thinking people walking around, bumping into him every now and then saying, hold on there, partner, and so there was a bit of, I'm not going to call it balance, I'll call it offset. Mm-hmm. There was some offset to the foolishness, which I believe kept him going totally off the rails. I think he learned from that, and now now they're not there. Yeah. So what he has surrounding him are a bunch of sycophants that are telling him exactly what he wants to hear in a manner in which he wants to hear it. Yes, they're lying to him, but when you're dealing with a transactional individual who, first of all, whose moral compass is his true north is the transaction. It's not based on morality. It's not really based on any type of fact. And if we talk about it in a geopolitical context, it's not based on any real clear worldview. Then you can wind up with this totally erratic, off-based gibberish that they call policy. But to your initial question about did he know or didn't he know, I don't think that matters. And the reason I don't think that matters is because we're talking about American foreign policy, irregardless of who's in the White House. The policy that Donald Trump is pursuing is the same policy Joe Biden pursued.
Yep.
Which is the same policy to a certain degree that Barack Obama pursued. Now, some will say, well, wait a minute, Wilmer, President Obama gave us the JCPOA. Well, that's true, but you have to understand that when you talk to those who really, like Jamarl Thomas, who really understand the JCPOA, they will tell you the United States never intended for that agreement to be fully executed. It was a stopgap, and it was not a treaty. It was merely an agreement between not the United States and Iran, but between President Obama. And I'm not sure the Iranian constitutional process, but I'll just say it was not a treaty that was approved by Congress.
Right.
So whether or not Donald, and now I'm speaking to the initial invasion by Iran, the initial attack by Iran last week, there was all this scuttlebutt about did Donald Trump know or didn't he know? It doesn't matter.
I mean, come on.
Because the United States and Iran are operating in concert.
You mean Israel?
Israel. Thank you. The United States and Israel are operating in concert against Iran. So
yes.
Whether or not Netanyahu called Trump on Monday and said, hey, Donald, tomorrow I'm pushing the button, it's a go, that is irrelevant because they're operating towards the same end. Their objectives, their goals, their methodologies are the same. So what was there this great cabal sitting around a table? It doesn't matter, because when you're operating in concert, you know what your cohorts or counterparts are willing to do and not willing to do, and you can operate within that framework.
Dr. Leon, I love you to death, but it does matter. It's not a minor point. And the reason why I say it's not a minor point is because they were obviously working in tandem. Mm-hmm. Like the notion to me, and let me break it into 2 points. The reason that it matters is because you get a lot of MAGA who are disillusioned, who are confused. And like Steve Bannon's like, whoa, I mean, I can't believe this is happening. Like, he just seems bewildered by the whole thing. Like when you got the attack on the Russian nuclear fleet. And I'm like, he obviously knew. He's lying. He was using a shadow campaign in order to try to push the Russians into a deal that they weren't going to take. He's just stupid. So he didn't realize that Putin wasn't going to accept it. And Steve Bannon is like, whoa, he should walk if he doesn't back this. And it's like, why are you, you're a political strategist. Why are you bewildered? And I guess I'm saying the same thing is true for this. The notion that it's somebody who we give 80% of their armaments, missiles, bullets, guns, all of that stuff to, that we refilled their jets in order to fill them up to the hilt before this took place, filled them up with air defense and everything else, that argued weeks before this took place to the ICJ that they could starve people, 2 million people, and that we were blissfully unaware. It's mind-blowing if that's the case, right? Mm-hmm. But you have many people in MAGA who still want to go with this idea but Donald Trump is a man of peace. Do you know that Don Jr. was on Twitter is like, the neocons want to divide us. That's why you should support my dad. support your dad for a neoconish war? Is that what you're saying? Like, so I guess my point is it does matter, even though I know your point. Like, this is U.S. policy, regardless, either way you look at it. Both are dovetailing. Both of them agree. I'm just trying to take aim that Donald Trump is not an infant that many of these people think that he is. He's a child with a gun.
No, okay. Well, see, I think we're both right. I mean, what you're saying, I don't believe negates my point.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't.
You're right. Donald Trump owns this. He is the president of the United States. He is the commander in chief. You are absolutely right. He owns this. The squabble within MAGA is, to me, similar to the squabble within the DNC.
Yeah,
it is a clear demonstration of the reality that the country is not nearly as far right as most conservatives want to believe it is, and it is not nearly as far left as most liberals or Democrats want to believe it is. And now that these realities are manifesting themselves, and I mean, when you go to a Chuck Grassley town hall in Iowa,
yes,
and you have the optics that you have when you have people in Iowa, white people in Iowa, asking Chuck Grassley, "What are you doing with Mr. Garcia? Where is Mr. Garcia?" That, to me, because the media, to a great degree, has put this in a racialized context. That's why I make reference to the fact that these are white people in Iowa making this demand. You're not expecting them to be focused on that. That, to me, speaks volumes. That tells you that the country, when you look at the reaction when you look at the No Kings protest across the country, and not only the volume of people, but the vast, diverse spaces in which this, you go from cities as large as Los Angeles to me is still a town. I'm from California, a little town, Fresno, California, not the burgeoning metropolis of Fresno. I mean, it's to little hamlets in New Hampshire. Folks, the country is not happy, and unfortunately, neither side of the aisle is listening to the country. Can I make one more point?
Please.
Because, folks, I think some of the evidence in terms of this is not Donald Trump policy, when you listen to the mainstream media, and I'll just say in the West, CNN and MSNBC, and you read the Wall Street Journal and Washington Post, they're all touting the same lie. That if Donald Trump if the United States / Israel does not intervene, Iran will have a bomb within the next day, week, month. The timeline varies, but they're all telling the same lie. Now, the Wall Street Journal, as you so rightly posted, they're saying that Tulsi Gabbard testified in March. The intelligence estimate says no.
Yep.
They will tell you that, but the larger point they're making is we've got to make this move. And that, to me, tells you the complicity of the media, which then signals to me this has a hell of a lot less to do with whatever administration is in place. And also, what you'll find is, because I was watching MSNBC
Oof.
yesterday, and I can't remember which show it was, but they asked, how did this happen in Iran? And their starting point of history was 1979 and the Iranian Revolution, as opposed to 1953 and the U.S. overthrow of the democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh in Iran. They never talked about why there was an Iranian Revolution. They never talked about the Shah was the U.S. dictator reinstalled in Iran. They never talked about the Savak, the
intelligence service,
the Shah's brutal, torturous intelligence service. The very same way that if you ask them about the current conflict in Gaza, all history begins on October 7th. They ignore the previous 70 years.
Ain't it funny how that works? Ain't it funny how that works? You control history, so you can just control the future going forward.
Exactly.
Those sexy Iranian women in mini skirts. I remember having a conversation with a guy, and he's like, "Oh man, they're just these religious wars that go back forever." And it's like, dude, you understood we overthrew the government, right? They weren't always like religious in the way, like meaning you said people in miniskirts in Afghanistan. I'm using miniskirts as a demarcation point from the religious tradition that is now come into play since they've overthrown their government, and the U.S. has never necessarily gotten wind of it or gotten over it. If you my rule, if you leave countries to their devices, they will evolve and grow, and they will inevitably grow towards some level of freedom and liberation for the citizens of the country, because people don't necessarily like to be held under thumb. If you put pressure on them, they will be different. They will be different.
Well, two things to that point, because I've been to Iran twice. And
have you?
Yeah, I was there in 2016, and then they brought me back I was there for 10 days in 2016, and I lectured at universities all over the country.
Go ahead.
And then, I thought you knew that. And then, and then they brought me back to celebrate the revolution in February of 17. And as you're walking through the streets, you're amazed at how Western culture, to your point about leave people to their devices, man, they love the West.
Yeah.
The thing that shocked me was I'm sitting in the hotel where we spent in the lobby of the hotel where we spent just about all of our downtime, and you see all these women walking around with surgical tape on their faces, and so
really?
So I started counting, and then my mathematical abilities failed me because there were so many women. And so I'm asking my interpreter, I said, "Man, what's up with this?" And he says, "Oh, Iran is the plastic surgery capital of the Middle East. And these women are here getting their eyes done and getting their noses done." I said, "Why?" Because he said, because they read Western glamour magazines and they want to look more Westernized.
Soft power.
I'm walking around the one of the main bazaars in Tehran, and this guy, one of the vendors, hears me speaking, and he starts yelling, "America, America, I want to go to America. Take me with you to America." I mean, he's yelling this, and he comes from behind out his stall, and he meets me in the aisle, and he just starts saying, "America, America, I want to go to America." And I said, "Man, why in the hell would you want to do that?" And he says, "The beaches and the women are beautiful." So I'm now later doing an interview on Press TV, and they asked me what I thought about my trip. And I said, "Man, your country is beautiful. Your food is phenomenal." And I said, "But you all don't have to worry about General Schwarzkopf. You got to worry about Colonel Sanders."
Fifth column.
And the guy, I said, because as I look at how Western influence or Western culture is creeping into your culture, I said, man, when that 2-piece and a biscuit hits your shores, you guys are done. I said, because you're going to start dealing with hypertension. You're going to start dealing with obesity. You're going to start. I said, man, it's going to be that sodium and those artificial ingredients. They're going to wipe you guys off the map. It ain't going to be General Schwarzkopf. It's going to be Colonel Sanders.
Soft power is a real thing. Like culture is a soft power. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember I was in Egypt, and when the guy realized I was an American, in very brutal English, like could barely get it out, he was like, "Oh, I want to go to America." Yeah. And he points out, he says, "I want to have sex with women." Now, for my thing, the religion is always an overlay. That's not really who it is to be a person. That's just an overlay. That's kind of like a software. And he was like, I want to go and hook up with these women. And as I pointed out to him, I was like, that's not like random, right? Like there's more work to that than I think you realize. And there was another guy where it was like these other women came, and they were from, I think, from States. They were beach white, like just bleach white. And he was like, "Oh my God, they're so sexy. They're so white. Their skin is so white." No, you're right. The cultural thing is real. Like the cultural thing is real. It's fascinating, like the way that works.
And final point to that, my interpreter who spoke and speaks, because I still communicate with him, great English. He's an English teacher. He says, "Dr. Leon, can you do me a favor?" I said, "What's that?" He said, "Can you talk black?" I said, "Man, what are you talking about?" And there were about 5 African Americans. We were sitting at dinner, and they were ready to kick his natural bone ass when he said that.
He didn't mean that as an insult, though.
No. He said,
no,
I said, "Ali, am I talking?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Am I black?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Then I'm talking black." He said, "Oh, no." He said, no. As they talk on the wire.
Right.
I said, I'm gonna do you a favor. He said, "What is that?" I said, "I'm gonna save you from the ass whooping that these folks at this table want to subject you to, and let me have you understand that's not real." I said, it's not real in the context in which he learned a lot of his English from watching television, and The Wire is one of their favorite shows, and at least it was when I was there, in Iran.
Yeah.
And I said, "Man, that's not real. Not in the broader context." But
they don't know it though.
But to his credit, his point, and he made this very clear, was as an interpreter, not only do I have to learn the language, I have to learn the nuance. I have to learn the slang. I have to understand context. So he says, "You speak very clearly. You speak perfect English." Mm-hmm. He said, "But as an interpreter, I'm not always going to be engaging with people like you. So I need to understand." So we started joking around with him and, the DC slang and all that kind of stuff. But I just found that to be an interesting side point.
I will tell you another side note on that before I go to the other one. I was in Israel. I was first time out of the country, going through just country after country after country. I go through Egypt, overland in Israel as I'm going to Jordan. And I had been there a few days. I'm going to a popcorn stall, and I ordered like popcorn, something to drink. And when the guy realizes American, he gets very excited, Israeli, very excited. And he was like, "Oh my God." He says, "Niggas, we love niggas here." And I'm like, my mouth hit the floor. I'm sitting, I'm like, because, there is no context for that, right? Like, it's just kind of like, what the F just happened?
Right.
But he is legitimately excited. He doesn't realize, hey, that is frowned upon. He doesn't get that. What he gets is
putting it mildly.
Yeah, he gets. I listen to rap music. I think rap music is great. I listen to American movies or watch American movies. This is stuff that they say in the movies, so I don't really entirely have a context for what I'm saying here. I just know I'm excited to meet somebody who's Black, maybe for the first time ever, and this is the way he explains it. And I'm trying to I realize, okay, he's not meaning this negatively,
right?
And as I'm trying to point out to him, say, that's kind of frowned upon. That's not real life. Like I know that's the soft power push that comes out.
And you've become, in that instance, you've become one voice against the dominant culture.
Yes, it's weird. It is very weird. But that's the stuff that comes out. It's so wild.
And if I could ask, because I know BB watches this show, if I could ask Netanyahu one question, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence?
For what?
BB, you've been telling us about this damn bomb since you've basically been the prime minister. Where is it? Where's the evidence?
Dr. Leon,
I know
they
where
can
it
make
is.
evidence for you.
No. I know where it is. It's in the stall right next to the weapons of mass destruction from Iraq. And next to that stall is the yellow cake uranium that Dick Cheney was telling us. They have this public storage facility. It's a secret public storage facility with the orange sign and the white letters and the little lock on the corrugated door. And it's there. That's where it is. It's not even in a mountain. It's just downtown Tehran. And that's where the bomb is. It's next to the WMDs from Iraq, and on the other side, in the stall on the other side, is that mobile trailer where all the biological weapons were being manufactured and driven all around the desert in an uncontrolled environment, so the biologics could not live in that extreme variation of temperature. I think it's stall number 77, stall number 79, 81, and 83.
Yep. I think it was Al Sharpton had said once when he was in a debate, he says, if they say that they have nukes and they say they know where they are and you invade the country and can't find them, then somebody lied.
Hey.
Yeah.
Dick Cheney.
Yeah. It's just that all of them. All those people are full of it. The evidence doesn't even matter. It's not really even about that. Like, it's just they say what they need to say to get from point A to point B. My rule, as I've been telling everybody on the show, habitual liars lie. It's a flat fact. That is a rule of nature. Habitual liars lie.
Why don't more of those press corps journalists ask that question? Where is the evidence? Don't the American people deserve the evidence? So when Donald Trump is standing in that doorway on Air Force One, and one reporter says, Tulsi Gabbard said, and he says, I don't believe her, then why doesn't the next reporter say, okay, Mr. President, based upon what? And then when he says, well, that's a stupid question, then another reporter should say, well, it may be a stupid question, but don't we deserve evidence? Especially since your director of intelligence testified before the Senate, and her testimony is consistent with what we've been told for the last 5 or 6 years. There is no program.
I mean, that's assuming you have a free media. And I don't think we do. I don't think we do.
That's why I watch this show, because you point out important facts like that. Oh, okay. Never mind.
I mean,
next question.
There's no other way. Like, what is the other alternative? Like, I always used to ask the question, and either they're lying or they're incompetent.
Mm-hmm.
It could be both.
Or they're incompetent and lying.
Yeah. And I think Noam Chomsky said manufacturing consent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fair enough. But it's kind of weird that they always have this American point of view in the way that they think about this stuff, as opposed to this kind of just, if you're sitting on the moon looking at events, what does it look like?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're sitting on the moon, you ask that question. Well, wait a minute, where's the evidence for this? And then when they give you some dodgy sheet of paper with a bomb on it, you say, well, this is just a cartoon bomb, sir. Where's the actual evidence?
Acme Bomb Company.
Bombs
are us. I got it at Bombs Are Us.
Speaking of Tulsi Gabbard, and I'm glad you brought her up. Politico, there's a question on whether or not Tulsi Gabbard should resign in protests. And Politico ran an article inside the clash between Gabbard and Trump. Mm-hmm. Because as I pointed in that video where Trump was like, I don't care what she says. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, well, that's pretty astonishing. You just threw your DNI under the bus. She's the person who's supposed to collate data from all of these other intelligence services provided to the president and let him make a choice. And you've just said, I don't give an F what data my director of national intelligence, the person who's supposed to know, by the way, who actually reads, because apparently Donald Trump doesn't read, and the coloring books haven't come out yet for him, that Tulsi Gabbard is supposed to be given to him. That I don't care what she says. I get it from God. I just, I have prophetic dreams that they're coming up with a bomb. That's pretty astonishing, right? You've just thrown the person who's supposed to know under the bus. You've effectively said, I have no confidence in my person who's supposed to correlate information from me. That's amazing. Even George Bush had sense enough to have a process of cherry picking information. Trump just pulled it out of his ass. So they point out that Trump was annoyed with Tulsi Gabbard on a few counts. One, because she put out that post or that tweet where she pointed out this one. She said, I recently visited Hiroshima, stood at the epicenter of the city scarred by the unimaginable horror of the single nuclear bomb dropped in 1945. What I saw, the stories I heard, and the haunting sadness will stay with me forever. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like Gabbard is trying to run an insurgent process of suffocating under the weight of an intel community of whack jobs, Zionists, lunatics, and neocons, and an incompetent first of trying to say, hey, this is a bad idea. You're going to war under false pretense, just like you did in Iraq. And this is not the America from Iraq. This is a different America. This is not 2003. Iran is not isolated. You are going to potentially drag the world into a nuclear war, and you're too stupid to know it. And Trump was upset. He was like, complaining to people, why is she putting this post out? I can't believe you put this post out. She's undermining me. And even apparently got into with her about it, saying, hey, effectively, you shouldn't have done that. Give me your take on that. I mean, that's fascinating, right? I mean, do you think she should resign in protest, for one? Do you think her resigning in protest is going to matter? And last question, do you think it's better to have somebody in who may fight the good fight and lose, as opposed to just not be there at all?
Well, let me answer your last question first. I always think it's better to have somebody in the fight. People ask me, and I'm sure you hear this all the time, don't you get disheartened? Why are you doing this? Because it's about the fight. I believe I have value to add, and I'm going to add that value. Mm-hmm. See, I think, should she resign? I don't know. That's her call. I've never been in that kind of position, and so I don't know all of the dynamics involved in a decision like that. So I don't know.
It's a tough one.
See, I think there were a lot of people that believed Donald Trump was an anti-war president. And I think she fell for the banana in the tailpipe trick. And there are those who will tell you that Donald Trump believes that he will win the Nobel Prize, that the one thing that he really wants is a Nobel Prize. And so he spoke in a context that had some people believing that. I think she fell for the prank.
Yeah.
And now she is where she is, and she's doing what she's doing. Should she resign? I don't know, because it depends. To me, it depends on how she resigns, and does she resign and then come on major networks saying, mea culpa, I believe the man. This is what he told me when he offered me the job. This is what I thought my responsibilities were going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I fell for the trick. This is not who he is. This is not what they do. If she comes out and starts telling the truth and naming names, then fine. But if she comes out and just falls by the wayside, then you're the whatever we thought you were. You're a fraud.
Yeah.
So I think the answer to that question will come when she is either fired or resigned, because I don't see her long for that job.
No, that's a good point. That's a hell of a point. It's a tough spot.
It's not much of an answer, but
no, it's a good answer. The answer is appropriate. I mean, because let's be honest, it's subjective on some level. I think your answer is apt. If you can come out and damage the administration that is trying to take your country to war and send your soldiers back into a conflict where they're going to get killed, let's be very clear. This idea that Iran is running out of missiles, I think it's nonsense. They are being well funded with China, who's been sending cargo jet after cargo jet after cargo jet since this thing has started.
Remember, Russia was running out of missiles. Remember that?
And Russia was running out of missiles too. So I don't buy the premise. We have all sorts of military bases that are around that region. I think like 50, 60,000 troops. The idea that we won't get touched, I think it's nonsense. And if she really is a true believer in, I don't want my men and women going to die for nonsense, then she should do what you said. She should try to damage the administration as much as she could in order to stop another war. At the very least, put a kneecap the way that she could. So no, the answer is fine.
Let me. This is a semantics point.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say she should come out and damage the administration, because that then demonstrates some intent and then puts what she says in question. She should come out and tell the truth. And if the result of that is damage, well, then that's the result of that. But because as soon as you start talking about, well, she should come out and damage, then now she's on a hit mission, and then we have to question the veracity or the validity of what she is saying. Tulsi, because I know she watches the show as well. Tulsi, come out and tell the truth.
Dr. Leon, always appreciate you, man. I really do. I always appreciate your take. I always appreciate your point of view. You know this stuff like the back of your hand. Dr. Wilmer Leon, he is radio host, political scientist, nationally syndicated columnist, host of Connecting the Dots. What's the other channel? I always Inside the Issues.
And let me tell you something. I don't like to announce my guests because things happen in people's schedules, but this Saturday from 11 to 1 p.m. Eastern time on Sirius XM 126 Urban View, I got a show. That's all I'm telling you.
You're not going to tell us? Are you just gonna drop that? I'm not going to tell you who it is, but there's a hell of a show.
Tell you what, bring me back Friday, and I'll tell you Friday.
I'll bring you back Friday. All right, my man. You have a fantastic day. Okay. Have a good one. Be safe. So bring me back Friday. I'll let you know.